So we did 4, and I think we were kind of rushing it there at the end. So let me just review for a second. I made you use the REF button. Does anyone remember the difference between REF and the RREF?
Row echelon
Form, row echelon form. Good. Nikki, what you got?
Well, REF only gives you one variable,
Uh-huh.
and RREF gives you all three.
Good. RREF is reduced row echelon form, in case I didn't write that, reduced row echelon form. So it gives you all of the variables because everything is a 0. And so when you go to write your answers, you have X equals a number, you have Y equals a number, and you have Z equals a number. Remember that these are my coefficients for X, Y, and Z. And so when you have just a 1 in the X and zeros everywhere else, then you don't have anything but your X. So it gives you all of your answers all the way out. So I made you practice doing REF, where you had to use substitution to solve. And then I want to go do letter B, and I want you to simply just do RREF. If you are not asked, do this one. If it doesn't tell you to do one or the other, and you're allowed to choose, do this one because it's just that much easier. There are going to be times where I'm going to make you do this, but if it doesn't tell you to directly, use this one. Yeah, Kate, what you got? Down here? All right, so we're going to go to letter B. Can you go do your augmented matrix for letter B? Then we're going to enter it in, and then we'll click RREF and get the answers pretty simply. We got 2 more or 3 more just like that, and then we'll move on to a new idea. I think we covered something like this the other day, but remember that if you have no variable, it's a 0. So I can think of that first column as my X's, my second one as my Y's, my third one as my Z's, and then that fourth one as W. And then we'll do our answers, and then we'll do our final bracket. And if you were watching me do that, I like struggled on a couple of them. I had to like think about it again. So if it's hard to write it as a column, you can do it as the row first. Just make sure that you're leaving zeros and spaces if you don't have an X or don't have a Y or don't have a Z or don't have a W.
So I put that in as a 4x5.
We're gonna put this in as a 4x5 matrix. Yes, bless you. So we're gonna go change matrix A. I always edit matrix A. I don't try and do anything else if I can avoid it. I'm going to enter that in the calculator, and then we'll do RREF of that and get my answer. Get my calculator up.
There's usually a lot of 1s.
There's often a lot of 1s. And sometimes it's hard because there's so many 1s, -1s, zeros that like sometimes you get lost on something. So that's why I tell you to be super careful when you go double, triple, quadruple check in. Once you're all good on that, do you remember how you find the RREF in the calculator?
Second.
Good. Go to the math menu in your matrix menu and go down to letter B. And then you have to do that of a matrix, so then make sure you do it of matrix A. Second matrix, and then click the math menu and go down to letter B. And these decimals, I think, are good enough. They're all 0.5s. Notice that this is what I told you you're gonna get when you get reduced row echelon form. You have ones as your diagonals, everything else is a 0, and then it tells you your answer. I did RREF. Remember that line that I draw is invisible, but it helps me keep everything straight. You take a real matrix class, you'll always draw that line. The calculator on here doesn't have on
It's in the
it.
same spot on.
There's
the-
no
The same
letter.
spot.
No, that's not.
You okay?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
No.
I'm working.
We're working on it,
Second
okay.
round.
One little thing, and then I'm gonna let you try the next couple on your own, so then you don't need me as much.
Yeah.
Notice that here, this is not my full answer. My full answer is x equals what? 4.5. What is y equal? What is z equal? And what is a w equal? Good. So it's important to remember where you put all your pieces so you can tell me what x, y, and z all equal. Same idea for C and D. So we're gonna try that. I'll come and help you if you have any personal problems, okay?
So we're doing.
Try the next two, exactly the same. Calculator, write your matrix, write your augmented matrix. I would do RREF unless you feel like substituting. That feels kind of painful, so I wouldn't do that, but you can. Maddie, you need me?
Oh, I was just wondering if like, the word put W first, that was.
That wouldn't affect anything as long as like this column goes at the beginning and then everything else is in the same order. I think it should still be fine. But then note that your first thing is W, not X.
Okay.
Well, mine is X because I put X as my first column. But if Maddie said, what if I put W first? Well, then W is your first one. All right, I'll join you on letter C. You all good? Good? Yeah. Did your desk good, Nikki? Okay. Being a weirdo today?
Yeah,
Okay, great.
yeah,
Every so often we all have one of those days.
just annoying the people around, man.
Make sure they're okay with you annoying them. Oh, does this look like I told you it was gonna look like? What do you notice specifically here? There's no one in the bottom right, it's a 0 instead. So that equation doesn't say z equals 0, that equation says 0x plus 0y plus 0z equals 0. What is 0x plus 0y plus 0z? It's just 0. If I have no x's, that's nothing. If I have no y's, that's nothing. If I have no z's, that's nothing. So that's 0 equals 0. What does that mean? All real numbers. We would do all reals, or we would do infinitely many solutions. When you notice that it doesn't RREF like you want it to, this should be a 0 and this should be a 0 and it's not. And the bottom row is all zeros. That means all reals are infinitely many. John?
So we only can have the bottom row, like if the top one was a 0 instead.
I think the way that we do matrices, it would always be the bottom row. Like I think you start at the bottom, you kind of work your way back up. if I remember doing matrices by hand. So in the calculator, it will always be that bottom row. All right, so there's another one like this. Go ahead and try that last one. See if it's like letter C or if it's like A and B, ones that we can actually solve out. I think that's kind of one of the hardest things that we're doing is just like entering it into the calculator. The most time consuming thing is entering in the calculator. So the reason we're practicing so many is so that you get the hang of entering it in. So that when you go to a test and quiz, you don't have to be like, oh my God, how do I change a matrix? Like, you know, and you get there a little bit quicker.
And you can leave it in, just put it into a fraction.
Yeah. And that's what I would suggest. If you start getting like, if you can't see the whole matrix, make it a fraction so you can see everything. And it makes a little bit more sense. See, notice on my board how I can't see half of my matrix. I'm gonna go math fraction, make sure that I can make it a fraction.
So this one's all real numbers too.
All real numbers too. You may not realize that until halfway through writing it. So you can write it out, or you can, sometimes I just do like blah, 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 and then the bottom row is all zeros, and I just am like, that's enough work to show that it's infinitely many. But I will finish writing it all the way out. It's like that. You guys doing okay with this? We're gonna do a little bit of 7-4. We're not gonna finish 7-4, but we're gonna do enough that if you wanted to get a head start on the homework, you could. 7-3 though is due next class. I don't see you guys tomorrow because it's a day one. So this will 7-3 homework will be due on Thursday, okay? So when we get time to work on it, I would work on that. Okay. Also, I think I told you, but I don't quite remember. We are having a quiz on Friday and not a test. Did we talk about that yesterday? Perfect. Okay. The quiz is going to be on 7-3. And then this little part of 7-4. So the very first part of 7-4, is going to be fair game for the quiz, but not all of it. Okay. So just pay special attention to this top part. The rest of it will do some up, but it won't be on the quiz. It will be on the test next week. And right now I'm expecting the test to be next Wednesday, I think, for you guys. Okay, so we'll quiz and finish 7-5 on Friday. We'll review on Monday, and then I think it'll be a Wednesday quiz for you. Okay, just a heads up. All right, so when we look at 7-4, I actually want to keep my calculator out because the way that we're going to do this is with the calculator. Now, that being said, you've learned so many ways to find area of a triangle, right? Back in elementary school, we did area of a triangle equals 1/2 base times height, right? Literally last unit, I taught you that area of a triangle equals 1/2 A times B times sine C. Remember that? Perfect. Now, when I give you these ordered pairs, we can actually do this as a matrix, okay? I used to teach this using directional vectors, but we're not learning vectors in this class. For better or for worse, I just think it was like one of the least important things that I could teach you. So instead, we just cut it. So instead of doing directional matrices, we're going to do a determinant, okay? So my area is still 1/2, but it's going to be the determinant of a new matrix that we're going to make based on the vertexes. I've got 3 points. My matrix is going to be a 3x3. It's going to be your first point, X, Y. The last point though, I need to fill something in, so I use 1 as a placeholder. So it goes X, Y, X1, Y1, 1. Then I'll do my second point, X2, Y2, also 1. Just holding that place. And then last, I'll do X3, Y3, 1. I generally just do first point I see as my X1, second point I see as my X2, third point I see as my X3. You can arrange them however you want. You can shuffle them around. It doesn't matter to me as long as you use all of them and keep them connected, okay? And we're going to do the determinant of that little 3x3. I taught you how to do it by hand, but I also taught you how to do it in the calculator. So we're just going to do it in the calculator. It's always 1/2, just like the other ones. And that's why I showed you all of those. They're all 1/2, 1/2, 1/2. So don't forget to 1/2 this. We did. That was the one where it was like I crossed those off and it was the determinant of this tiny matrix times that number. It's like kind of a pain, but like you can do it. But we're gonna use our calculator for this. In case I didn't say it, just because I feel like I'm losing my mind a little bit, your quiz on Friday is a full calculator quiz. There might be things that I say, please show work by hand in order to get full credit, but you'll get a graphing calculator the whole quiz. So I'm gonna do 1/2, and I'm gonna write my new matrix out. I'm gonna go 1, -1, 1, 3, 2, 1, -1, 7, 1. We're just gonna plug that in the calculator and find the determinant. So I'll do 1/2 of whatever that determinant is once I plug in the calculator. So again, still the hardest thing or the most time consuming thing is just plugging things into the calculator. Making sure that we can edit my matrix to make it now a 3x3. Careful of your positives and negatives. And then, do you guys remember how to find determinant?
There's something. Matrix math.
Math. Good, that works. Perfect. Now I have an ad, so we're gonna watch a little ad, but you guys keep going ahead if you're good. And then make sure you do determinant of that matrix. You can't just do DET and call it a day. Okay, I get 22. And then 1/2 of 22 is 11, so we'll say 11 units squared. Can you do the same thing on the next one without me? Go for it. Just 1 or 2, but I mean, there's so many different things I've taught you, so there's probably like 1 or 2 things of everything. Not bad, right? Okay. You guys all good back there?
Yeah.
The area is just like a lot to talk about. Yeah. Glad we worked it out. I've got 2 more skills I'm going to teach you. Again, they're not on the quiz on Friday, but they will be on the test next week. Okay.
That would be, that would.
This is for sure on the quiz. Promise. All right. I'm going to keep it moving. The next one's probably gonna be the hardest thing that we're gonna do today, just because it's a little funky, but I promise it's gonna get back to the matrices, okay? So let it be a little uncomfortable. And before we start though, I'm gonna write these steps off to the side so we can kind of follow along. We're just gonna do A for today. We'll hit B next class, just so we have something to kind of practice and come back to. So I'll do my little steps over here, okay? So this is called partial fraction decomposition, okay? So basically we're breaking apart this fraction. And the first thing we need to do is decompose the bottom. We got to factor the bottom. So we're going to factor the denominator. That's going to be the first thing that we're going to do. Factor the denominator. The second thing we're going to do is take that factored denominator and split it into two fractions. We're going to separate fractions. And again, I'll show you what this looks like in a second, but I think it's easier if we have the steps already written. Once we've separated those fractions, we're going to clear the denominator. We did this back in like chapter 2, I think, where we had like fraction equals a fraction plus a fraction. And you just completely clear the denominator so that we're able to work from there. Clear the denominator. Then we want to combine like terms so we can start solving. Combine like terms. And then last, we'll solve with a matrix. Now, I know that we've solved a bunch of different ways, but I like to do RREF here if I can help it. So when in doubt, I'm going to try and do RREF whenever possible, because A, it's the easiest. Actually, that's the only reason. It's the easiest. All right, so let's go to this problem. Let's start by factoring the denominator, okay? So this 5x minus 1 is over x squared minus 2x minus 15. What does that come to when we factor that out? X plus 3, x minus 5. Then my next step is separate the fraction. So I'm going to make that equal to something over x plus 3 plus something over x minus 5. The only problem is I don't know what those things are. I don't know what's going to be above x plus 3. I don't know what's going to be above x plus 5. So we're going to use variables. Unfortunately, we already used x. Yes.
Will always be a plus in between fractions.
Yes, always be a plus in between the fractions. I don't know what's going to go in the numerator, and I don't want to use x because I already have x going on in here. And y and z make it a little bit more complicated. So I'm going to use a variable that's not normal for us. I'm going to use a capital A sub 1. We're going to get rid of it eventually, but treat that like it's a variable. A sub 1, and then the other one will be A sub 2. We will replace it very soon with x and y to make sense to us, but I have too many x's already. I can't do that yet. Okay, we've factored the denominator. We've separated my fractions. Now we're going to clear the denominator. We're going to do that by multiplying every single thing by the denominator, by x plus 3 and by x minus 5. When I multiply that by the thing on the left, the whole denominator cancels, right? Because everything is gone. I'm just left with 5x minus 1. When I multiply it by my first fraction, a sub 1 over x plus 3, the x plus 3 cancels, and I'm left with just x plus 5. So I'm going to write a sub 1 times x minus 5. And then when I multiply by the last fraction, the x minus 5s cancel, and I'm left with just x plus 3. So we'll write plus a sub 2 of x plus 3. That's my clear the denominator. This next part, the combine like terms, that's going to be the messy part that you guys don't like, but that's what we're going to do next. Notice that I have an x here. I have an x here and an x here. We want to get my x's together. I also then have a constant, I have a constant, and I have a constant. So before we can get those things together, I need to distribute that a sub 1, that a sub 2, because right now it's outside the parentheses. Again, it's gonna get messier before it gets cleaner, but just kind of let it be. So I've got x times a sub 1 minus 5 times a sub 1 plus x times a sub 2 plus 3 times a sub 2. I know that we also have like terms with a sub 1 and a sub 2, but I want you to ignore that for right now. We're going to keep that 5x on the left side, but I want the beginning of my other side to now have both of my x's at the front. So I'm going to have x a sub 1 plus x a sub 2. So now see how all my x's are kind of lumped together. Then we're gonna do the same thing with my constants. We're just gonna put the constants together. So I've got that -1, that's the second thing. Now I'm gonna put my minus 5 a sub 1 and plus 3 a sub 2 at the end. Now we're gonna start cleaning it up by separating this into two equations. No matter what happens, 5x has to equal whatever that is, whatever x a sub 1 plus x a sub 2 is. There's no other x's, they're not going to magically get there, so no matter what, this has to equal that. So I'm going to write that as its own equation right here. 5x equals x a sub 1 plus x a sub 2. Similarly, no matter what happens, -1 has to equal whatever -5 a sub 1 plus 3 a sub 2 is. Again, I'm not going to magically get an x to get rid of any of those. Those are my constants, so those have to go together. I know it's a little messy. This next step, I'll start cleaning things up. Look at that first equation. What's in every single one of those terms? An x. If an x is in every single one, can we get rid of it? Yep. So you can divide off an x from everything here. And you can either rewrite it or you can just erase it. It doesn't matter to me. So this is like 5 equals a sub 1 plus a sub 2. Or just for my sake, I'm going to just erase the x's right here. Now, let me make it even easier. What if we don't have any x's. What if I make those a sub 1's x's? So what if I make that 5 equals x? And what if I made that a sub 2 a y? Those are variables we're used to seeing, right? Same thing on the bottom. I'll make that a sub 1 an x and that a sub 2 a y. Does this kind of look like the equations we've been doing this whole time? If you want to make it even look more like what we've been doing, move the constant to the far side. This looks most like what we've been doing. That looks just like a system of equation. You could substitute, you could eliminate, you could do inverse method, we could do Cramer's rule. However, what I think I'm going to do is reduce row echelon form. I'm going to make this an augmented matrix. And then I'm going to hit REF in the calculator, and it's going to pop out my answer. If I make this an augmented matrix, I get this. You guys all okay with that? Then again, we'll throw that in the calculator, hit REF, and solve from there. This time it's not a 3 by 3, it's a 2 by 3. I know it got super messy right in here, but are you guys eventually okay on how I took out a sub 1 and wrote x and took out a sub 2 and wrote y? You don't have to. You can go immediately from here to there. That would be fine as well. I just find sometimes our head can't wrap all the way around it. So instead I make it x and y just because this looks familiar to me. And then I entered my matrix in, I'm gonna do my RREF. And then it will immediately just tell me what X and Y are. So my X equals 2, my Y equals 3. And which one did we say X was a minute ago? Was it A sub 1 or A sub 2? A sub 1. And then Y is A sub 2. Which all this to say, if I go all the way back up to the beginning, I could put 2 in for my A sub 1 up there. So 5x minus 1 over x squared minus 2x minus 15 is equal to 2 over x plus 3 plus, and then I'll put my 3 in for my A sub 2 equals 3 over x minus 5. That's kind of what we got to. We solved to find x and y, and that's technically what that partial fraction decomposition is. If we were to break that fraction apart, this is equal to that. Now, we're going to skip that next one just because I want to kind of move on and do a little bit of practice on another skill. Is this going to be on your quiz tomorrow on Friday? No. So if you're not fully behind it, that's okay. We'll get there later. Okay. Go ahead and flip your paper over, and we actually have like kind of a review of something we've done a lot, and I don't even need my calculator for this. Do you guys remember what kind of equations these are right here?
Yeah, I know.
You know what's going on?
Asymptote, fold.
Yeah, this is a rational function. These are rational functions, and we're going to be graphing them. Now, that being said, like Carson just said, we've got asymptotes and all that thing like that. So I'm going to make a little bit of notes over here. What kind of asymptotes do we have on these kind of graphs? What kind of asymptotes you got here? Horizontal? Vertical? What else do we have going on here? What else do we have to?
Asymptotes, folds, and intercepts.
Poles. And then intercepts, we've got X intercepts and Y intercepts. Again, we did this back in, I think, chapter 2, and you did this in algebra 2. So let's see if we remember what any of these things are. Anyone remember how to find any of those pieces? What's one?
The denominators, like the horizontal.
Not the horizontal, vertical. The vertical is set denominator equal to 0.
So it's 3.
We'll do that in 1 second.
Oh, which is.
Coefficients are horizontal. Remember, there's 3 special cases with a horizontal asymptote. The first one that you mentioned, Nikki, is if their exponents are the same. So their coefficient, the fraction of their coefficients is my horizontal asymptote. What happens if the x is bigger on the bottom? It's 0. What if it's bigger on top?
No solution.
We do synthetic division. We used to say no solution, and then we decided that we could do synthetic division because it's a slant asymptote. We will factor it on wholes, and the whole comes from when my factored form has like canceled out factors. So whole is your canceled factor. All right, we got 2 more, x-intercept and y-intercept.
One set the x is 0.
Y is plug 0 in for the
In for
x's.
x.
X is what? It's not that funky, it's just the numerator. It's funky because you often have to factor it, but it's just the numerator. So set numerator equal to 0. So we're actually going to do C first, and then we'll do B, because I think those are the easier ones. We'll look at A next class. Let's see if we can kind of run through C really quick, either by yourself or with a neighbor, see if you can find all those pieces and then sketch a graph of it. I'll leave the like kind of list up here. While I find those places. You guys good with me so far? I got to do one more thing. What's the last thing I have to do? No shading. I have to just draw another one of those kind of C curves
Like your son.
on the other side. On the, is it top left, top right, bottom left? Top left, good. Just make sure you kind of have a mirror image of that. Once you get C done, pop back up to B. That'll be the last one that we do today. So let's do letter B really quick and then we'll have homework time for the rest of class. Alright, so I can do letter B really quick. Alright. Got my last one done. Are we doing okay with this? Okay, pause, I'm almost done. We doing okay with this? Okay, technically, you've learned everything that you need to know for 7-4, so technically you can do that homework. It's not due till Friday, but if you have a busy week, you can do it. 7-3 though is due on Thursday. I do not see you tomorrow, but I do have office hours if you need help with any of this. Everybody good?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna turn off the recording.